Hello, my name is silverThreads. Before we start, I'd like to tell you about the most amazing narrator to ever exist. 242 reads, "She's way better than me in every way, and honestly, I don't even know why you're here. Look how cute her hair is. She must have spent hours to get it look like that. And that cushion also looks so cozy. Her links are in the description. Go check her out immediately. Don't worry about it. I don't mind." Oh, you're still here. Fine. I guess I'll tell you a story then. My little brother got stuck in an air vent by, God damn it, Will. As children, me and my little brother would always race each other through the air vents in our house to see who could get to the room faster. Dad would always tell us not to do it since one of us could get stuck, but we never believed him, so we just did it when he wasn't around. He was probably just tired of us always popping out of the air vent and scaring him. I would win pretty much every time at first, but eventually I started having troubles moving in the tight spaces due to my growing body, which my brother would only get better and better until our roles had reversed and suddenly he was the one always beating me. It wasn't that I was getting slower, quite the opposite in fact. Something inside me said that if I moved too fast through the vents, I would eventually get stuck. So I stopped racing. This ticked my little brother off. "You're just mad 'cause you're losing," he would shout. I ignored him and went up to my room. After about a half an hour, my dad called and said that he was going to be late and to unload the dishwasher and to get my little brother to help rake the leaves outside. It was pretty normal for my dad to be late, so I did as I was told without question. It was only when I went to rake the leaves that I noticed something was wrong. 45 minutes had passed since I came home from school with my little brother, and yet I hadn't seen him since getting here. That wasn't normal. He was always bugging me to play with him or do something stupid that would get us in trouble, and I would always turn him down. Had he finally given up? No, that didn't seem like him. I assumed that something had happened at school that upset him, unless he was still mad at me about the vent thing. But that wouldn't make any sense. If it was me, he probably just tried to punch me or something like that. It must have been something I don't know about. I got up to his room, but he wasn't there. I searched the whole house, but I didn't find him anywhere. If he had left, I probably would have heard the front door opening. I searched again, this time looking through each and every nook and cranny that he could hide in, all while calling his name. I was about to give up and say he ran out when I wasn't paying attention and call the police. That's when I heard him crying. "Donnie, where are you?" No response. "Okay, come on out. Donnie, this isn't funny anymore." I can't," he said between heavy sobs. It felt like I was talking to a ghost. Where the hell was he? And that's when it clicked for me. There was only one place I hadn't checked yet. The air vents. "Donnie, are you stuck in the air vent?" Though he whispers, I managed to make out a uh-huh. Suddenly my mind was racing. My first thought was to call the police, but then it hit me. Dad doesn't know about air vent racing. If he found out, he would never let it go. Heck, he probably wouldn't let us do anything by ourselves ever again. That left only one option. Hang in there, Donnie. I'm coming to get you. Okay. It was crazy, but what choice did I have? Grabbing a flashlight from my dad's toolbox, I forced my way into the basement's air vent. It was a tight squeeze. I had to ram my body against the sides of the vent in order to stretch it open enough for me to move easily. With the flashlight in my mouth, I started crawling through the vent like a mole, trying my hardest to follow my little brother's cries. They were reverberating off the walls so much it was impossible to tell where they were coming from. Eventually, I found that I had looped back around the same place I started. This was getting nowhere. If my brother was trapped anywhere, it had to be a narrow part of the vents in the center of the house, near the boiler. I went there and shone my flashlight through, but saw nothing. Damn, where was he? I only had a little bit of time before Dad came home, and then I would have to explain the whole thing to him. I tried to call out again. Donnie, where are you? I don't know. Great, thanks for the help, Donnie. What room are you close to? I can't tell, he said. Donnie, listen to the sound of my voice. What direction is it coming from? I can't tell, he said. Right, the reverberation. What about before? Right before I came in here. Was I close or far away? You were close, I think. Really close. So he was near the basement? But that doesn't make any sense. I already checked all the vents near the basement. He must be in the upstairs shaft. I'm really sorry, big brother, he cried. I could hear his voice echoing from all around me. It was like he was talking to me from every direction. I wanted to crawl through the basement vent to your room so I could jump out and scare you, but then I got stuck. I just wanted to show you that I could crawl through the air vents with no problems. I'm so sorry. His wails got louder. It was super annoying. Listen, Donnie, I'm going to get you out of here, so stop crying, okay? He must have listened because he calmed down a little after that. But at least he had given me an important clue, his destination. I retreated my steps through the vent back to the basement, following the dents I had made in the sides. Then I proceeded to crawl through the basement vent shafts towards my bedroom. Doing this brought back a lot of memories for me, but at the same time I remembered why I had stopped. By the time I was on the other side, I was covered in bruises and cuts. And most importantly, I hadn't seen any sign of my little brother. It didn't make any sense. He knew the layout of the vent shafts better than I did. There was no way he had gotten lost. I called down to him again. Donnie, what route were you using to get to my room? The shortest route, he said. That was the route I took. I couldn't have possibly missed him. The two of us couldn't even fit in any of the vent shafts together anyways. Was it possible that he knew a shorter route than I did? It seemed hard to believe, but there didn't appear to be very many other possibilities. Begrudgingly, I went back through the vent shafts, this time exploring every path that forked off from the one I believed to be the shortest. When I found myself back in the basement, I turned around and looked again. This repeated multiple times, to the point where I even drew a map to make sure I didn't miss anything. He just wasn't anywhere. Of course, I hadn't considered the possibility he might not actually be stuck. Instead, he was just lying to make me crawl through the vents a bunch of times as a punishment for not racing him today. He could see my flashlight beam to know where to get out of the way in time, and since we had no other way of locating each other, he would be able to avoid me with ease. It was a far-fetched theory, but at this point, it was the only thing that made sense. Hey, Donnie, stop being cruel. Just get out of there already. What do you mean? I can't move. His crying started up again, this time louder than ever. It didn't sound like he was lying. Eventually, Dad came home and I explained everything that had happened. He wasn't nearly as angry as I expected, and he seemed to agree that my theory was the only possible explanation for everything. He went into his toolbox and grabbed a handsaw, then looked at me with a wink. If he won't come out willingly, we'll just have to cut the vent open until he has nowhere left to hide. I wasn't sure if property damage would be worth a little bit of revenge, but at the same time, my little brother could have left at any time he wanted, so at the end of the day, he was the one to blame for the damage that was about to be caused. We went down to the basement again, this time following the underside of the vent shaft in the first cross section. My dad placed the handsaw on the corner of the vent and started cutting. As soon as he made the first cut, everything went wrong. My little brother started to squeal in pain, his voice echoing through the entire house, blood pouring down the saw onto my dad's arm. He looked at me in horror and started shouting, "Quick, call the ambulance now!" I rushed to the phone, but even as I dialed the emergency number, I couldn't believe that I had searched so long for my little brother in those air vents and came up empty, while my dad was able to find him on his first try. The irony was too morbid to stomach. When I returned, I saw that my dad had tried to make another cut in the vent to try to reach in and pull him out, only to be met with more blood and more screaming. The two cuts were far enough apart from each other that they couldn't possibly both come from my little brother, unless he was moving. "Stop it! It hurts!" he cried. My dad's solution to this was to simply start the vent grate and keep cutting until he encountered more blood. But even by making the small cut in the entrance, he was met by blood and screams. It defied all common sense. His explanation was the blood was coming from somewhere inside the grate, and that cutting it was causing the grate to rattle, which was aggravating a wound my little brother had acquired at some point earlier. But I knew. At that moment, I could have sworn the grate entrance looked like a face. Once the ambulance arrived, I was sent back up to my room. Not that it mattered. I could still hear everything from the vent in my room. No matter what room in the house I was in, I couldn't escape his cries. "I'm so thirsty." That's when it dawned on me. There was one thing I still hadn't tried yet. I ran down into the kitchen and filled a big salad bowl with water, and then I carried it up to my room, being extra careful not to spill anything. I then poured the water down into the vent shaft. "Hey, Donnie, which way is the water coming from?" I listened closely for an answer, but received none. All I could hear were the sounds of someone drinking. Later that night, my grandparents came and picked me up, and I started living at their house. After a couple of days, my dad started living there too. Our old house was quarantined off by the government for a long time, until it was eventually demolished and another house was built on top of it. Some old neighbors said that they took something away in a big semi-truck before demolishing the building, and there was a bunch of rumors at school about what had happened. As a teenager, I started having nightmares about my brother being stuck in the air vents in my body, such as my respiratory system, digestive tract, or ear canal. It got to me so much I started trying to destroy the air vents to make him go away. My dad and grandparents stopped me, and I told them about the nightmares, and they sent me to counseling, which I took until my late 30s, when I was finally able to recover. I tried so hard to forget about the past events, but there was one thing that still bothered me. I couldn't work up the courage to ask my dad until he was already on the last legs, but the answer was the one I knew from the beginning. "Dad, why didn't we ever have a funeral for Donnie?" He looked at me and smiled weakly. "Donnie never died." I knew that already. I could still hear his cries.
Hey! What are you doing? Get out of here! What was she She read the vent story? Damn it, she knows how much I want my furniture to bleed when I cut it. She'll be hearing from me later. Well, this week is a write-off. I hope you liked it, I guess. Subscribe if you like, and check out her channel as well. I'll get my revenge. And I guess I'll see you next time with another story.